Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep today into a topic that feels, well, incredibly urgent right now. How artificial intelligence is dramatically reshaping the job market.
Absolutely. And you've brought us a really fascinating stack of sources, articles, research reports, insights straight from tech leaders, giving us a really good look at what's happening right now and what might be coming next.
Right. And our mission here is to sift through all this material you've gathered, pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, and help you understand AI's impact specifically on, white-collar versus blue-collar jobs.
We want to see what's vulnerable, what seems resilient, and crucially, what it all means for you trying to navigate this changing landscape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the picture these sources paint is, frankly, quite clear. AI isn't just some far-off concept anymore. It's actively creating real opportunities, but also throwing up some significant challenges across, well, pretty much every industry.
And, when you look at the overall impact on jobs across this material, one contrast immediately jumps out. The research consistently indicates that white-collar roles are facing significantly higher automation risks compared to blue-collar ones.
That headline contrast is huge, isn't it? The numbers cited are genuinely eye-opening. Some reports suggesting up to, 30% of white-collar jobs potentially automatable specifically by generative AI.
Right, by that specific type. And then you compare that to less than 1% for many blue-collar roles when looking at that same type of AI. It's a stark difference.
And this is really where the core debate in these reports seems to surface. On one hand, AI is clearly displacing some jobs, especially maybe those entry-level positions in white-collar fields.
Yeah, the sources definitely point that way. But on the other hand, there's this strong promise of creating entirely new roles, too. The big uncertain question, which, these sources are wrestling with, is what the net impact will ultimately be. Is it more loss or more gain?
And that's exactly what this deep dive is going to tackle, drawing only from the material you shared with us. We'll dig into the specifics of AI's influence on white-collar and blue-collar jobs, look at the broader labor market trends identified in these sources.
And finally, explore some key insights from the prominent tech leaders that are actually cited in this material.
Okay, so let's really dig into that first area, white-collar jobs. What do these reports tell us about why these roles, the professional, managerial, office-based ones, are flagged as being particularly vulnerable right now?
Well, the reports consistently pin it on their heavy reliance on routine, data-driven tasks. Think about the kind of work that involves analyzing documents, writing reports, crunching numbers, generating content.
Right, work that often follows predictable patterns and uses language and data extensively.
Exactly. And that's precisely where generative AI, the kind that can understand and create text or code, really excels right now.
And the data points from your sources on this vulnerability are quite specific, aren't they? That Pearson Telf report from 2023, for example.
Yeah, that one suggests approximately 30% of all white-collar jobs could potentially be performed by generative AI. And they even broke it down, citing roles like medical secretaries 40% automatable, billing clerks at 38%. Pretty specific.
Wow. And the World Economic Forum's, or WEF's, 2025 Future of Jobs report kind of echoes this. It shows over 50% of tasks for market research analysts and a striking 67% for sales representatives could be replaced by AI capabilities.
It's interesting, though, that same report suggests managers seem a bit less exposed, with only maybe 9 to 21% of their tasks deemed replaceable, maybe the more human-centric parts.
That's a good point. Your sources also highlight several specific fields as being highly exposed. Software development, legal, accounting, graphic design, these come up frequently across the material.
Yeah, let's take the legal sector, for instance. Tools like Harvey and Co-Counsel mention in one piece, citing a 2025 Stanford study via Forbes, they're automating document analysis with, like, 90% accuracy.
90%. That's incredible.
Yeah. It is. And the insight here is that this directly threatens work traditionally done by paralegals, or tasks like initial contract drafting, roles heavily reliant on processing text and data.
And in software development, we hear a lot about AI coding assistants.
For sure. AI tools are undeniably boosting productivity, but they're also automating many routine coding tasks. And this has a direct impact, particularly on entry-level and mid-level roles, according to these sources.
We even see Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg predicting back in January 2025, Forbes reported this, that AI could replace mid-level engineers by the end of this year.
Right. Though the idea presented there isn't necessarily just mass layoffs, but maybe shifting human engineers to focus on more creative, higher-level architectural tasks while AI handles the more routine coding grunt work.
Okay. And media and journalism are also flagged as vulnerable areas in your material.
Yeah, copywriting, basic journalism tasks, they face risks. There's a Pew Research Center report from 2024 suggesting 30% of media jobs could be automatable by 2035. Again, it's where that generative AI ability to create text is directly relevant.
So when we look at job displacement versus creation specifically within these white-collar areas, the sources give some pretty concrete examples of displacement, right?
They do. That 2025 CBS News report you provided mentions companies reducing demand for roles like copy editors. One example cited cut staff dramatically from 15 down to 5. It highlights how AI is starting to take over certain editing and review tasks.
Ouch. But it's not all doom and gloom. The reports also point to new opportunities emerging.
Yes, definitely. They talk about the emergence of entirely new opportunities, particularly in AI-related fields, roles like AI ethics specialists, which seems incredibly important given the challenges and advanced data scientists are mentioned as potential offsets to job losses.
Still, the picture from employers, according to that WEF 2025 report, seems quite stark for certain roles.
It does. 40% of employers expect workforce reductions, specifically where AI can automate tasks. And the sources note this is expected to particularly impact those entry-level white-collar positions. It suggests companies might automate the sort of ground floor first.
What about the broader economic and social implications? What do these sources mention for white-collar workers as this all unfolds?
Well, several points stand out. There are shifts noted in salary expectations, with some reports indicating that remaining hires might accept lower pay for roles where AI support is heavily integrated, maybe because the AI provides some of the value previously delivered by a human.
Interesting point.
There's also significant concern among younger workers. A striking 49% of U.S. Gen Z workers believe AI has already reduced the value of their college education. That's a powerful social insight.
Almost half, wow.
And finally, outsourcing seems to be intensifying. U.S. firms expanding operations in lower-cost regions like India, increasing competition for white-collar jobs. The WEF noted this partly because AI makes remote collaboration and task transfer even more efficient.
Okay, that's a comprehensive and frankly, yeah, a bit concerning picture for many white-collar fields. Now let's shift gears entirely. Let's look at the blue-collar world. How do your sources contrast the vulnerability there?
The contrast is indeed significant, just like those overall numbers suggested at the start. Blue-collar jobs, manual labor roles in sectors like construction, manufacturing, customer-facing retail, they're noted as being far less affected by generative AI specifically.
Right, that specific type of AI again.
Exactly. That Pearson-Pallek report from 2023 states less than 1% of these jobs are fully automatable by this specific type of AI. The insight seems to be that generative AI primarily works with information, text, code, not physical tasks or complex, non-routine human interactions.
That distinction about the type of AI is really crucial then. But the sources do clarify that while maybe entire jobs aren't replaced by generative AI, specific tasks within blue-collar sectors are being automated, often using different types of automation like robotics or more specialized AI systems.
Exactly right. Fast food and retail are prime examples cited in the material. You see robots replacing tasks like burger flipping at Sweetgreens or smoothie making at Sam's Club.
Right, I've seen videos of those.
Yeah. And Amazon Go's cashierless stores use sensor and vision AI to reduce the need for traditional retail workers. An article from Nexus in 2024 even mentions AI-powered fitting rooms, further decreasing the need for human staff in some retail environments.
So, specific task automation, using robotics or specialized AI, not necessarily the generative kind we talked about for white-collar.
Precisely. Manufacturing is another area mentioned where automation is increasing for repetitive tasks like machine operation. This contributes to productivity gains, as noted in an IoT for All article from 2019. Again, often robotic process automation or control systems.
Okay. However, your sources consistently highlight blue-collar jobs that are noted as highly resilient. Why is that?
The key theme across the sources is that these resilient jobs require either significant human interaction, empathy, or complex manual skills that are still incredibly difficult for current AI or robotics to replicate effectively.
What are some specific examples these sources point to as being resilient?
Well, that CBS News 2025 report you provided emphasizes roles like child care, nursing, and personal care are much less likely to be replaced because of the essential human element, the empathy, the non-routine interaction they require.
Makes sense.
And the Pearson-Pallek report from 2023 actually shows 0% automation potential by generative AI for roles like bus mechanics, dishwashers, and highway maintenance workers. These are jobs that require very specific, often unpredictable physical interaction with the environment.
0%, that's telling. What about drivers?
Truck and taxi drivers are also noted as having only about 30% of their skills replaceable by AI, according to one source. This reinforces their resilience for now, likely due to the need for real-time, complex environmental navigation and decision-making that just goes beyond current AI capabilities.
Okay, so while specific manual tasks are definitely being automated in some sectors, many blue-collar jobs needing that human touch, empathy, or complex physical skills seem far more secure, according to this material, at least from generative AI's impact.
Mm.
Are there economic benefits mentioned for automation in blue-collar sectors?
Yes, the reports do point to significant potential productivity gains. That 2019 IoT for All article, for instance, suggested automation could add up to 14% to U.S. GDP by 2030.
40%, that's a huge number.
It is. And the underlying economic idea presented is that increased throughput and efficiency in these sectors potentially makes goods cheaper. This could boost consumption across the economy, and that increased demand could, in turn, potentially create new jobs elsewhere. It's a chain reaction argument.
Okay, so we've looked specifically at the nuanced picture for white-collar vulnerability and blue-collar resilience as presented in your sources. Now, let's maybe zoom out to the broader labor market trends and implications across the whole economy. What's the big picture?
Well, when you look at the wider view of AI's impact on the entire labor market, the scale mentioned is global. Euronews, citing UNCTAD in 2025, reported that AI is expected to impact a massive 40% of global jobs over the next decade.
40% globally. Wow. And this is where that net job effect debate, the loss versus gain thing, gets really complicated on a larger scale, and where your sources highlight the uncertainty, right?
Exactly. The WEF project's AI will create maybe 11 million jobs while displacing 9 million by 2030 globally. So a net gain in that forecast, with 170 million new jobs expected this decade overall, factoring in other trends besides AI.
But there's a but, isn't there?
There is. The crucial insight from your material here is the volatility in these predictions. It's really important to note that earlier forecasts mentioned in these very same sources predicted a net loss of 14 million jobs globally by just 2027.
So the predictions themselves are changing rapidly.
Massively. This isn't just a small difference in numbers. It shows how quickly things are evolving and underscores just how difficult it is to predict the exact final outcome of AI's impact. The future really isn't settled here.
One major issue that seems consistently highlighted across these sources is the skills gap. These new AI-related roles, AI development, data analysis, AI ethics, they require advanced skills that, well, many current workers simply don't possess yet.
Yeah, and a Pew Research study from 2025 provides a really telling statistic here. 52% of U.S. workers surveyed expressed worry about AI's impact on their job security.
Over half.
Right. And this figure powerfully underscores the urgent societal and economic need for widespread reskilling initiatives. People know something big is happening, and they're understandably concerned about being left behind.
The sources also touch on some important gender and regional considerations you mentioned.
Yes, they note that roles typically filled more often by women, particularly administrative and customer service positions, are flagged as being automated at higher rates. A 2025 CNBC article you provided suggests this could potentially exacerbate existing gender gaps in the workforce.
That's a serious concern.
And regionally, as we touched on with white-collar jobs, that trend of outsourcing to places like India seems to be intensifying competition, particularly for those professional roles. The WEF noted this, driven partly by the efficiencies AI enables for remote work.
So given this really complex picture, challenges, opportunities, skills gaps, global shifts,
Yeah.
what do the sources suggest about potential policy responses or adaptation strategies?
Well, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, in 2024 emphasized in one source the necessity for proactive policies. Policies designed to leverage AI's potential for boosting productivity while simultaneously mitigating the significant risks it poses, like, widespread job displacement and rising inequality.
So government action is needed.
That's the implication. And another strategy proposed in that Nexus article from 2024 is focusing not just on replacing humans, but on fostering collaboration humans working alongside AI, maybe analyzing and refining AI-generated outputs, creating these kind of hybrid roles.
That collaboration point seems key. Which brings us to some fascinating perspectives from the people actually building this technology. Let's look at Section 5. Insights directly from the tech leaders themselves, as cited in your material. What perspectives are we seeing from these prominent figures?
It's a really interesting mix, actually. We see both significant concern, even stark warnings, but also this remarkable, almost unwavering optimism from leaders right at the forefront of AI development.
Okay, like who?
Well, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, in a May 2025 Senate hearing cited by PYMNTs, he openly acknowledged that AI could eliminate up to 70% of jobs.
70%, that's a massive number coming from him.
It really is. And while he noted the incredibly rapid pace, he still expressed optimism about society's ability to adapt. He emphasized that enabling the early widespread use of AI tools is key to creating new roles we might not even be able to fully envision yet.
So potential for huge disruption, but also potential for adaptation and new creation. What about Mark Zuckerberg? We mentioned him earlier.
Right. His January 2025 prediction reported in Forbes was more specific, suggesting AI could replace mid-level engineers by the end of just this year, focusing on automating those routine coding tasks we discussed. More targeted, perhaps.
And Ahmad Mustaq, the founder of Stability AI.
He was even more direct, according to an Office Chai report from February 2025. He stated that AI is already outperforming outsourced Indian programmers and predicted a significant disruption in the traditional outsourcing market, potentially by the end of 2025.
Wow, that ties directly back to that regional competition point we just discussed.
Exactly. And then Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, added a perspective from the financial sector. He cautioned in April 2025, reported by Forbes, that AI is significantly impacting finance and legal sectors already, and predicted a fundamental restructuring of white-collar work more broadly by 2035.
So these insights from leaders who are actually developing and deploying this stuff seem to underscore the points we've pulled from the research. The rapid pace, the specific vulnerability of certain white-collar sectors, and just the sheer scale of the potential transformation.
Absolutely. It gives a real sense of immediacy and importance to the trends identified in the reports and articles.
Okay, that truly was a deep dive. We've pulled some really specific and, I think, powerful nuggets of insight from this material you brought us.
Yeah, and the key takeaways from these sources seem pretty clear and consistent, right? AI is fundamentally transforming the job market, no question. White-collar roles appear to be facing higher automation risks, largely because their tasks are more data-driven and language-based, making them susceptible to generative AI.
Right. Whereas blue-collar jobs requiring those complex manual skills or significant human interaction seem more resilient, although specific tasks within those sectors are still being automated by other forms of AI and robotics.
Exactly. And the ultimate net effect, whether it's a net loss or gain in jobs overall, well, that seems heavily dependent on how societies and economies adapt. It depends on the success of widespread reskilling efforts and on proactive policy interventions designed to actually manage this transition.
Absolutely. The sources consistently seem to emphasize that collaboration between humans and AI, learning to work together effectively.
Yeah, coupled with proactive workforce strategies like retraining and education.
Those are going to be absolutely key to balancing the potential productivity gains that AI offers with the critical need for job security during this period of, well, massive change.
It's a huge balancing act.
It certainly is. It's a lot to think about as AI becomes more and more integrated into all our work lives. So based on these predictions and trends we've explored from your sources about AI's impact, particularly on white-collar roles, and the emergence of entirely new job types, here's maybe a provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider as you look ahead. What specific skills or areas might you focus on developing to navigate this rapidly changing landscape most effectively?